Hello, welcome, and salutations to Den of Otaku, Den of Geek's official anime discussion series where we talk about anime, Japanese pop culture, and all the biggest developments going on in the industry. I'm your host, Daniel Kurland, and in this episode, we have got Big D energy, by which I mean Vampire Hunter D. Yes, in honor of Vampire Hunter D's 40th anniversary, we are going to talk about what is arguably, I think, the most important vampire anime of all time. So we're going to talk about Vampire Hunter D's history, how it's kind of evolved beyond its source material novel roots, and kind of just the legacy that it's left behind as this foundational vampire anime text. So let's do it, fellow otaku. Vampire Hunter D. Before we jump too deep into Vampire Hunter D, I think it's important to just talk about vampires as a concept, because there are so many different tangents of horror that get a lot of attention, but vampires are just so prevalent, whether it's in cinema, television, novels, and anime is no exception. I think vampires are just a good way to kind of reflect on the loss of humanity, temptation, eternity. It's a topic that really lends itself to romance a lot of the time too, and just with vampires, you can tell stories that aren't necessarily possible with zombies or ghosts or something else. And so I think vampires do have a lot of cachet. They've found a lot of success in anime. You have your Hellsing and Hellsing Ultimate, Shiki, Vampire Knight, Trinity Blood, Blood the Last Vampire. A lot of big horror action series. Monogatari, another great one. But at the same time, there are also comedy vampire anime. The Vampire Dies in No Time. It's a very funny show that's doing comedic subversions of a lot of vampire tropes. So there is an abundance of vampire anime out there. But Vampire Hunter D is arguably the first vampire anime that was made, and at the same time, it's become kind of just this major influence, not just on vampire anime, but gothic horror in general. And it's always just so exciting when a title just out of the gate is not just good, but can kind of set the tone for a whole subgenre. And like I said, Vampire Hunter D is celebrating its 40th anniversary. It was back in theaters in April with a new remastered 4K print, which was gorgeous. If you could see it, it was incredible. But it's also going to be streaming on Shudder at the end of May. The first time this remastered 4K print is going to be streaming on Shudder. Shudder, I don't think gets enough credit as a kind of niche place to find anime. They had Perfect Blue for a long time. Just if you have Shudder and you're a big horror fan, check it out for anime, because you never know what you're going to find. So Vampire Hunter D is getting this kind of big push for its 40th anniversary. If you've never seen it before, you can catch it on Shudder soon. I just wanted to kind of give it its due, because as beloved as it is, there is a lot to learn about this property at the same time.
Interesting. I've heard rumors about a mutant who can warp the fabric of time and space. Would that be you?
Okay, so Vampire Hunter D, what's kind of cool about it is it just goes for broke with its setting. It's set in the year 12,090 AD, so it's 10,000 years in the future. It's set after a post-apocalyptic nuclear disaster has gone on, and there's a world that was filled with vampires, but now so much time has passed that kind of humanity has once again regained control. There's a lot of vampire hunters that have taken care of these creatures. So you have this Mad Maxian world that is filled with vampires, supernatural threats, but also plenty of people that hunt them and take them down. Vampire Hunter D, it is a horror and action series, but it has a lot of just inspiration too from Western, science fiction, Lovecraftian horror, the occult. It's such an exciting melange of just different ideas. You'll have a visual of Dee walking through the desert with an abandoned satellite in the background. There's just a fun pastiche combination of all these different ideas. Trigun. Trigun feels very indebted to Vampire Hunter D in a lot of ways. And Dee himself, despite how he's a vampire hunter, he's a Dhampir, which is a half human, half vampire, which is ideal to hunt vampires in this universe. You see that idea done a lot, but Vampire Hunter D really treats D like this ridiculous, over-the-top, unique figure. He wears like this wide-brimmed hat, he has a sword, his left hand is sentient and like can do magical things, but is also kind of like his wisecracking sidekick at the same time too. He rides a mechanical horse. There were just so many elements to Vampire Hunter D that do more than just vampires, vampire hunting. It's such an exciting kind of amalgamation of ideas that turns them into something new.
Don't tell me that you've fallen in love.
That's enough, old fool.
Of course she did offer you her body, didn't she? Not that you'd be interested in that.
When we talk about Vampire Hunter D, a lot of people think about the titular movie. It has found most success as a feature film, but I think it's important to kind of talk about where it came from. Vampire Hunter D started as a series of novels by Hideyuki Kikuchi with illustrations by Yoshitaka Amano. And basically, this is like a huge series in Japan. There are 56 novels and counting. Basically, a novel comes out every year, and it's kind of like Japan's equivalent of like The Wizard of Oz to some extent. Like, there are just so many novels, and it's kind of mind-boggling that only the first novel and the third novel have had anime adaptations. There is so much to this franchise that has kind of gone untapped. And Kikuchi, who wrote Vampire Hunter D, is a very prolific Japanese horror novelist. His first work, Demon City Shinjuku, is a huge kind of text as well. It was turned into a successful OVA. Funnily enough, it's directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri, who does the Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust sequel movie too. But Kikuchi made a lot of waves as a horror novelist. He wrote Demon City Shinjuku, Wicked City. He's had a few series that have released several novels, like Darkside Blues and Treasure Hunter. Both have multiple novels, but Vampire Hunter D is definitely his magnum opus. None are as long as this 56 title saga, and it's just been really exciting to see it grow over time. Kikuchi has said that he has a master plan for D, that he kind of knows what the final conflict is in mind, but has also said that the end of D's story isn't necessarily the end of this grander universe that he's built. And it's also kind of interesting to see that Kikuchi has talked about that one of the main influences when he was writing Vampire Hunter D were the 1950s Hammer horror films, like Christopher Lee's portrayal of Dracula. And I just think that is what is so cool about anime and adaptation in general. Like, you have a archetypal Japanese horror series that was inspired by American horror in the first place. So you have Christopher Lee's Dracula inspiring Vampire Hunter D, and then Vampire Hunter D has gone ahead and inspired plenty of other American vampire stories, like Castlevania is drawing a lot from Vampire Hunter D. And I just love when you kind of get this cultural feedback loop going on, where you can have all of these different references mixing together and creating just something really special at the same time too. So it's just, I think, important to recognize that Kikuchi has been working on this franchise for over 40 years. It started in 1983, and it's a big deal not just in Japan. Like, this novel series has sold over 17 million novels collectively, which is one of the biggest selling series of literature in the world. Like, Vampire Hunter D has sold more copies of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Bridget Jones's Diary, His Dark Materials. So, I mean, those are huge franchises. Those are big household name properties, and the fact that Vampire Hunter D has actually sold more than them shows you its relevance on an international scale. Like, yes, these books, the series is big in Japan, but it's also proven to be so much bigger than that. And I think that's part of the allure of the series and why it is still important over 4 decades later. Okay, so outside of Kikuchi's novels, the first big Vampire Hunter D adaptation that happened is the 1985 movie. And this is what most people know about with Vampire Hunter D. That's what we're celebrating here with the 40th anniversary. And it really is a great entry point to the series. In terms of plot, it's pretty simple. Like, D has just been hired to protect a young damsel in distress from a vampire lord. That's kind of what's going on in a lot of the Vampire Hunter D stories. It's not important though. Like, you really just want to be in this universe, spending time with these characters, and just taking in these sights. This film is directed by Toyo Ishida, who is actually a very interesting choice for this. As an artist, Ishida's influences are Tex Avery, Bob Clampett, the Fleischer Brothers. He worked under Akira Toriyama on Dr. Slump, so he has a very Akira Toriyama sensibility to his character designs. He did the designs on Minky Momo, F-Zero Legend, GP. So he's used to playing in these very cutesy, friendly worlds. He is a comedy person, first and foremost. That being said, he was the director on the Fist of the North Star series, so he does have a little post-apocalyptic world credit here, and I'm sure Fist of the North Star is how he got the Vampire Hunter D job. But he's just a very interesting personality. Additionally, Ishida, he co-founded the Japanese Animation Creators Association with Satoshi Kon. Satoshi Kon, we love on Otaku, we'll talk about Satoshi Kon more in the future, but they founded this non-profit organization, which is basically just trying to improve conditions for animators in Japan. So Ishida is just a cool guy. He cared about that type of stuff. Interestingly, his aim with Vampire Hunter D is, he said he wanted people who were tired after working a full day or studying all day to be able to watch an OVA that they enjoyed rather than becoming more tired. Truly, his agenda with Vampire Hunter D is he didn't want people that were tired to become more tired from watching this OVA, which I just think is so silly. This is a horror in action title. You'd think his agenda would be I want to scare people. I want to have them excited over these action sequels. I want people cringing at the violence. The idea that all he wanted to do was make tired people less tired is just, I don't know, very silly, very humble. And the fact that this is such a big title at the same time is just a testament to kind of the interesting trajectory that Ishida has had as a creator too. So Vampire Hunter D, it had an interesting reputation in the United States. It was released 7 years later in 1992 in kind of the fine arts film circuit. It wasn't a mainstream release, but it was kind of shown in selective theatrical circuits. It was marketed in the US as the first animated horror film for adults, which is very interesting because there were releases before this that were anime, Wicked City and Demon City Shinjuku both came out before Vampire Hunter D, but I think it's a testament to Vampire Hunter D's pedigree. This is the bigger title, this is the title that more people cared about, and it was just one of the first anime that was explicitly being made for male teens, adult audiences, rather than families. And it's just interesting. Ishida really creates an interesting visual aesthetic for Vampire Hunter D. There's almost a vintage Disney quality to some of the visuals. There's a Sleeping Beauty, Black Cauldron quality to some of the transformation sequences that go on. There's intense violence, intense transformation sequences, but there's also such an interesting color palette in this film, and the way that it plays with color, form, and just really goes for broke with some of its visual ideas is the secret sauce to this film. It's interesting that Ishida doesn't come back for the sequel, but I do think what he did with this movie is part of the reason that Vampire Hunter D was such a success in the first place. He's someone who is not from the horror scene, but he found a way to tell a horror story that's really engaging and just distinct. This had a small budget as far as movies are concerned. Interestingly, its budget is okay by OVA standards, but pretty low by movie standards. This is an OVA, but it's an 80-minute project that was released in theaters that by all intents and purposes, people are viewing this as a film. So the fact that it could still do so much with a relatively low budget is also just a testament to what this movie accomplished.
And it's only fitting that you die by your own sword. It can't be.
The original Vampire Hunter D movie was such a success that they, of course, put a sequel together, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. This is an adaptation of the third Vampire Hunter D novel, Demon Death Chase. And curiously, the sequel took a long time. It came out in 2000, so 15 years after the original. It really goes for broke. When you think of a sequel, you want something that's telling a bigger story, that's more exciting, that's kind of just more exciting and grandiose in every way. And Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust definitely accomplishes this. It has much more of the Mad Max quality, that you're just out in the world. It's less of an intimate story. If you're familiar with Stephen King's like Dark Tower series, it's akin to like the Dark Tower to the Drawing of the Three. It really becomes bigger in every way. And on that note, like, where's our Dark Tower anime series? That would be great. Let's do a Dark Tower anime. But the big ingredient with Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust is that it's directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri. He was just coming off of Demon City Shinjuku and Ninja Scroll fame. He is such an out-of-control director. He's a great choice for this. At the same time, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust does kind of feel more like a Kawajiri vehicle than a Vampire Hunter D vehicle at times. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, it is a Kawajiri film for better and for worse. There's one character who's like an assassin who blends into her surroundings. Like, she'll become metal or she'll become a tree based on whatever she's around. That character feels ripped right out of Ninja Scroll. There's just a lot of fun, larger-than-life characters in the film. The story is, once again, Dee is trying to help a damsel in distress who is with a vampire, although she might actually be willingly be with that vampire because she loves him. It gets into like the whole consent of vampire relationships. There's other bounty hunters that are hunting the same bounty and up against Dee. Really just a good story in every way. Yoshiaki Kawajiri does a great job with just heightening this story in a bigger way. There's a bigger budget. The animation is really cutting edge and impressive at the time. Like, right from the start of this film, you're like, Jesus, this is really going for broke, and it puts the first film to shame. Not that the first film is bad, but it does have like a more retro quality than Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. And because of the first film's success in North America, there was a really concerted effort to give Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust a big push outside of Japan. What's funny about this is it was released in 6 theaters that eventually expanded to 12 theaters, and it brought in more than $151,000 at the box office. This doesn't seem like that much. 6 theaters, 12 theaters, $151,000. But at the time, that was breaking box office records. This literally broke the box office record for a Japanese film airing in another language other than Japanese. So despite this small kind of minuscule showing, it really was a record-breaking film. I think this is just a great reflection of how far the anime industry has come outside of Japan. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the anniversary screening for Vampire Hunter D made more than that $151,000. Like, now, anime films make millions at the box office. They beat big budget blockbuster tentpole films from America. It's a whole new ballgame for anime films in theaters, and it's kind of just cute and quaint. I think that Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust really did kind of redefine the game, but in such a small way that is just interesting when you look at how far things have come, and just literally at the amount of screens that Vampire Hunter D's anniversary screening was at versus what this film experienced. So it's really just cool to see how far things have come.
He is the only hope for survival.
So the 2 Vampire Hunter D movies are what I would say are the biggest, most mainstream application of this franchise. There has been some exciting brand extension that's gone in different directions. In 1999, there was a survival horror game for the PlayStation that was released. It's very interesting. Like, you don't see survival horror games with vampires very often, so that in itself is cool. It does a pretty good job of translating the series to a video game. Like, there's the standard survival horror, like collecting keys and puzzles while also fighting creatures. You get to use Dee's sword, his left hand. There's a lot of magic in it too. At the same time, this isn't a particularly good game. Like, I think it's cool that it was localized in the first place, because this kind of feels like the sort of thing that would have been released in Japan and that's it. It's an adaptation of Demon Death Chase, so Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, but before Bloodlust came out. So it's a fun little preview of what was coming ahead of the movie. There are some fun survival horror ideas in it, but I do think it's just indicative of what was going on with anime video games in the 90s. You have some titles that are just incredible, like the Ghost in the Shell PlayStation game. That is an incredible game. But then you also have stuff like Dragon Ball GT Final Bout that are just taking a game in a franchise and doing the bare minimum with it. There's a Berserk game for the Dreamcast that like has its fans, but is also very much a mixed bag. At the same time, people were excited to just get Vampire Hunter D as a video game. If you've never seen the films or know the franchise, I could see somebody playing this game, falling in love with just the lore of it all and being like, I need more of this. There were audio dramas made that were adaptations of the first 3 novels. There's a 2007 manga that was released that like very ambitiously was like, we're going to adapt all the novels. All the novels are going to become manga and we're going to have unity there. That being said, after 8 volumes, the manga series stopped. There were ambitious plans to kind of do a American comic adaptation called Message from Mars. It gained a lot of money on Kickstarter. Curiously, one of the stretch goals for it was a Vampire Hunter D Pathfinder role-playing game supplement. That in itself, just a cool game. Like, we should have a Vampire Hunter D Pathfinder extension. We should have a Vampire Hunter D tabletop game. That is where this franchise could really thrive, I think. That's a cool idea. Anyways, though, this American comic really kind of struggled with its release. The 5 issues eventually came out, but it's a very obscure niche release. This comic was also meant to be a prequel to an American animated series. This series was very ambitious. It was going to have Kikuchi and Kawajiri on as like supervisors, kind of making sure that the brand name of Vampire Hunter D was maintained. The whole idea was that it was going to be like an hour-long serialized adult animated series. It would be sold to US markets first. It would eventually air in Japan too. And it was just going to be the definitive adaptation of it. This just got caught in production hell for a long time. In 2018, there was a pilot script that was ready, but it just stalled due to COVID. And although it hasn't officially been canceled, I would be very surprised if this actually was ever released. Curiously, despite how this series didn't happen, it's kind of what went on with Netflix's Castlevania series. Like, that is an adult animated franchise. It's not an hour long, but there were some long episodes there. And in that sense, I do think it's kind of interesting that like Vampire Hunter D's animated series died so Castlevania could live, because if you did do a new Vampire Hunter D series, I do think a lot of its fans would come from Castlevania. And again, you get this weird, interesting echo chamber feedback loop of like Vampire Hunter D helped make Castlevania possible, but now Castlevania is feeding the audience of Vampire Hunter D. It's always just an interesting thing. At the same time, they were in the 2010s, they were trying to do a live action series of Vampire Hunter D2 that didn't come together. I do think a live action Vampire Hunter D series could work really well. Someone like Robert Rodriguez would be a perfect fit for this. Like, he knows how to play in that kind of, is it real, is it animation kind of space. At the same time, if you had someone like Takashi Miike or Sion Sono doing what they did with Yakuza Apocalypse or Tokyo Vampire Hotel, that would be great. I do think a live-action Vampire Hunter D adaptation could work. It's not just a vampire story, it's not just a vampire hunter story. It does have such unique DNA that we're not seeing in other live-action series, and for that reason, it would really work. So it is, I think, just kind of interesting to look at all these odds and ends of the Vampire Hunter D franchise. There are novellas, there are short stories, there are other spin-offs that exist as well. You know, all of this is kind of just showing that the franchise is forever going to kind of be in the public consciousness, even if it has kind of struggled to connect in recent years. And despite that, like, I do think we're ready for a proper Vampire Hunter D revival. Like, the legacy it's left behind is kind of indisputable. Alucard from Castlevania, explicitly based on D. Even the opening of the Castlevania video game is drawing from Vampire Hunter D as its reference point. Trigun, I mentioned before, I do think there's a lot of Vampire Hunter D in that. The 2004 live-action Van Helsing movie, that is definitely pulling from Vampire Hunter D. There have been Met Gala outfits that are like D-inspired too. So there's just like, it's in the ether. And I do think it's been a missed opportunity to just do a full-on adaptation of the 56 novels and counting. Like, it is still just so surprising to me that only the first and third novels have been adapted. Now that the series has had 40 years, I do think as the 50th anniversary approaches, that's the perfect time to strike here. And it's a little surprising that there isn't like a modern anime auteur that is passionate about the series and wants to like shepherd its reinvention, you know, like someone like what Hideaki Anno was doing with Space Battleship Yamato, what Wit Studio is doing with its One Piece series, Mappa with Ranma 1/2, Studio Orange and Trigun Stampede. These are all great examples of modern people that are taking classic stories that they love and are reinventing them. So have to believe that there's someone out there that is truly passionate about Vampire Hunter D and wants to bring it forward for a modern audience. The only reason I can think that this isn't happening is just because there are so many other vampire anime out there that they're like, we don't need this. But that's wrong. Like, this isn't just a vampire series. It's the progenitor of vampire anime content. It is the Dracula of vampire anime in the sense that it sired every other series that exists. We wouldn't have any of this without it. We wouldn't have Castlevania without it. And so I do think it's important to kind of just celebrate it, give Vampire Hunter D its due, and for its 50th anniversary, what would be better than just truly adapting it, going for broke, and giving people the adaptation that they've deserved. So that, a live action series, this is what we should be getting as people are celebrating the series and thinking about it in the future. And oh, do you hear that, fellow otaku? Yes, if I'm not mistaken, we got a big 3 on our hands here, guys. Big 3 time. Okay, guys, what is the Big 3? For those of you who don't know about the Big 3, this is basically our odds and ends segment. There is so much anime out there. It is impossible to stay on top of it. You can't do it, guys. So something like the Big 3 is just our way of kind of spotlighting titles, new, old, in between, that you might have missed. And in honor of Vampire Hunter D's 40th anniversary, we are doing a Kawajiri-coded Big 3. So all of these titles are titles that are connected to Yoshiaki Kawajiri, who was involved with Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. The first of these is Highlander Search for Vengeance. Guys, there is a Highlander anime. How did people not know about this? Highlander Search for Vengeance is basically just doing Highlander as an anime. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's another Colin McLeod quickening situation where he has to duel another immortal to survive. And Highlander makes so much sense for an anime. It honestly feels like something that would have been an anime and then turned into a live action movie first. Like, you have sword fighting, immortal, aliens. That's just anime in a nutshell. So Highlander Search for Vengeance is, like, if you don't know Highlander, you can still watch this anime film and have a fun time. If you like Highlander, I honestly think this is a pretty good adaptation. It came out in 2007 when the franchise was kind of like running on fumes, so it's not like disrespecting a franchise that was at its peak at this point. It was really kind of like dead anyway, so why not try an anime and see what happens? Honestly, it's a little disappointing that this movie didn't prompt a proper series, because Kawajiri is such a good fit for this. Such a fun kind of title that is just having fun with the Highlander universe. And it's like, it's a fun co-production between like the American entities that own the Highlander franchise and Madhouse. And I think it's always just fun when you do get like a Western series being reinvented in anime or vice versa. This is one of the better examples of it. It's not like just a ashamed little like novelty of Highlander. There's actually a lot of substance to this, and it just stands tall as like a Kawajiri film. Like, if you like Ninja Scroll, if you like Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, Highlander Search for Vengeance is just as good and stands tall with them.
Who are you?
Colin McLeod of the Clan McLeod.
The next title for the Big 3 is Birdie the Mighty. Now, Birdie the Mighty has a 26-episode anime from 2008. That is not what we are talking about. We are talking about the 4-episode OVA from 1996. Now, Birdie the Mighty is directed by Kawajiri. It's also co-written by him and Chiaki J. Kanaka, who is such an interesting anime screenwriter. He worked on Digimon Tamers, The Big O, Technolize, Serial Experiments Lane. He's definitely someone we will talk about in the future. But him working together with Kawajiri is such a match made in heaven. Birdie the Mighty is a really fun, playful show that it deals with like a Federation officer who is hunting a space criminal. They both come to Earth and kind of masquerade as humans. Birdie, the Federation police officer, pretends to be a model, and so there's some fun topic there. Basically, Birdie is trying to catch Giga, a space criminal. They get in an accident, and she accidentally merges together with a high school student that just gets caught up in this situation. So you have Birdie continually trying to catch Giga, but at the same time, this innocent teenager is kind of merged together with Birdie, trying to redefine their existence and just make sense of what's going on. So there's like a little Lilo and Stitch there maybe in terms of these aliens coming to Earth and pretending to be humans. It's just a really fun series. So the 4-episode OVA, I think, does a good job of distilling what's going on here. If you do like it, check out the 26-episode anime that followed. That is not done by Kawajiri, but it's still just a fun idea. The 4-episode OVA, though, distills it down to its barest parts and has great stuff going on. Curiously, Jay Oliva, who is like Zack Snyder's primary storyboard guy, he's a big Birdie the Mighty fan, and the fight between Superman and Zod in Man of Steel is inspired by Birdie the Mighty. So there's just some interesting Birdie the Mighty trivia. The show isn't as big as it should be, and if Zack Snyder is having fun with it, shouldn't you be having fun with it too? So Birdie the Mighty. And the last title for the big three is A Wind Named Amnesia. A Wind Named Amnesia is a 80-minute film from 1990, and it's an interesting collaboration by Kawajiri and Kikuchi, who wrote the Vampire Hunter D novel. So Kawajiri actually didn't direct A Wind Named Amnesia. He wrote it and he handled the storyboards. It is directed by Kazuo Yamazaki, who is perhaps best known for like Slayers and Urusei Yatsura. So again, someone who is like kind of coming from like a comedy background, telling another post-apocalyptic story here, which is just an interesting dynamic. Like, we keep seeing this happen in this. So what's interesting about this is you have the Vampire Hunter D band kind of being brought back together. You have Kawajiri writing the film, and it's adapted by a Kikuchi novel, so it does kind of feel like a very meticulous effort on the production's part to be like, this adaptation process of Kikuchi's other work worked well in the past, so let's try it again with A Wind Named Amnesia. This title is such an interesting 90s title that I think not enough people talk about. That being said, it is streaming on Tubi, and you should check it out. Tubi has so many underrated anime titles that you wouldn't think to find there. Check out Tubi. You're going to find so much great anime. But A Wind Named Amnesia is basically another post-apocalyptic story, and it deals with kind of a wind that has gone through the world and erased everyone's memories. And it gets into the interesting idea of if it is malicious for aliens to like erase mankind's memories, or if that's kind of a necessary thing, that you need to reset humanity in order to like break a cycle of violence and do something new, or is humanity doomed to kind of just repeat the same mistakes? So there are some really heady, interesting ideas here, even though it's kind of a story of like aliens playing SimCity with mankind. So A Wind Named Amnesia, it gets into the same like rich, methodical, theological underpinnings of what's going on in the earliest stories of Vampire Hunter D. Just a fun, interesting take on what's going on here, and just an underrated Kawajiri connected title. So once again, for the big three, we have Highlander, Search for Vengeance, we have Birdie the Mighty, the 4-episode OVA, and we have A Wind Named Amnesia.
マグナムを打ち込むのよ。
And unfortunately, fellow otaku, that is all the time we have in this episode before I get isekai'd back to reality. We would once again like to thank you for going on this adventure with us, because without you, we got nothing, baby. So until next time, Space Cowboys.